The next session, we're actually going to have three separate presentations. The first is from Rosie Ashworth by video, but I'm going to ask Agnes here to come and introduce the first video. So, Agnes, thank you very much.
Hi everybody, I hope you've enjoyed yourself as much as I have today. The food's been great. Now I've been asked by Rosie to introduce this next session. Rosie is the lead, the dementia lead in this research for the neuroprogressive and dementia in research. She took this role on after working alongside people with dementia on a number of co-produced research, and I've been with Rosie for quite a while now. Together, Rosie and our partners in research have made a video so that you can meet others like me who are willing and wanting to do this work. And on the video, what the questions that are being asked is, why did we want to be partners in research? And what would we like to have seen from this group of us moving forward? And Rosie's details are in the pack that you've got just now. And finally, Rosie asked me to thank you all the partners sitting here and watching online for their hard work and commitment to including experts by experience in dementia and other neurological conditions. So enjoy the movie.
Many reasons why I joined Partners in Research, including grief, anger, dismay at my ignorance and all of the general public towards dementia and other neurological illnesses. Having suffered for many years watching my wife deteriorate and initially not understanding what was happening or even realising that many signs that were eventually diagnosed were actually presenting themselves right in front of my eyes, and I didn't know. My wife was diagnosed with frontotemporal dementia, a condition I had never even heard of. To say I'm devastated is an understatement, and my reason for joining Partners in Research is simply I do not wish for anyone to suffer through ignorance as we have, and for the public to be made more aware of all the possible genetic, environmental and lifestyle reasons for these neurological conditions, which I believe are all linked in some way. For the scientific community to engage with us as carers and sufferers who have first-hand day-to-day knowledge and experience that can be used to engage with science to help find the real cause and eventually a cure. Had I been more aware and science more advanced towards positive treatment, those years when the early signs were missed and the 2 years delay in Anne's diagnosis may have resulted in a totally different outcome for me and for her.
So when I first diagnosed, I thought, well, I do know a lot about Alzheimer because of my biological background. But then looking at literature, all the stuff were published were by the professionals, by the doctors and all that. There's no really a lot of research involving people living with dementia, carers and so on. You know, in fact, I noticed that when I was doing one of your literature review, and they say that although they claim that this particular report was involving people living with dementia, but they're all sitting there observing and doing questionnaire. They weren't contributing anything to the final research, you know. So I'm looking at this particular research is an eco-partnership that we would bounce off good ideas between ourselves, and then hopefully it'll be a fantastic report at the end of the day.
Why did I join this? Well, I've been diagnosed now with dementia of the Alzheimer's type. I was diagnosed at the age of 57 and I'm now 73, so do your maths, it's quite a long time. And at the beginning, I got involved in research very quickly, but research was being done to me. So as Mike said, I was sitting there, researchers were interviewing me, they were taking in collecting all my data, and I was answering the questions, and I never really heard much back from them. And then I quickly realised that I wanted more involvement and more to be equal in the partnership. But that has taken many years. We could have had a degree, the amount of research and various things that we've done. We only haven't done the academic tests. So research is important to people living with dementia. And I'm glad now that the researchers are seeing that carers and people living with dementia can contribute on an equal footing, and that we should be treated with respect and be acknowledged for what we're contributing. One person with dementia, you only know one person with dementia. We're part of the human race. We are human beings. We bring different things to our dementia, no matter what type it is, So come into our world and see us as human beings and not just a label. So that's why I'm delighted to be part of this, because I think it's going to be exciting.
I've been living with the diagnosis since 2010, and you can imagine the impact that had on me. And of course, like everybody else, not knowing much about the condition and only knowing the worst possible scenario, I refuse to accept that I have it. I think to mention here that I was accountant. I had my own business, and one minute I'm accountant, and next minute when they said that you've got dementia, I'm unemployed, because it's not just the condition; it's the thought of having a condition that has got no cure that really knocks you. The only thing I can add here is that what I know about dementia today, had I known all that in 2010, I would have been a different man. And also, on a lighter note, that I have done so many researches. I've done I think 9 or 10 interviews for universities. I've done articles for the newspaper. We made films that Agnes knows. But I think that to get people involved with the condition, we need some sort of feedback on the studies that we actually participate in. And that is important for us, because I'd like to know whether my contribution has benefited yourself or not. And then I can look at it and say, right, this is what you need, and this is what I need to concentrate on.
I think one of the reasons that I feel that people living with dementia should be involved with research is because there's a bit of a gap between what the researchers see as important and what us folk see as important. And if we can try and bridge that gap, then that's all for the best. Yes, inevitably, we will agree on many things. As I say, we all want cures. We all want better diagnosis. We all want earlier diagnosis. Those things are given. But when I talk with other people with dementia, we discover we have things in common that you don't read about in textbooks. And I think it's time we did read about those things in textbooks. So we'd like a voice, please, because it's only right, it's only fair, and it makes sense.
I started looking at what was being done in the field of research. And of course, I had many friends because I was in carers groups. So I was able to talk to them, and they all came up with the same thing, that it's all splintered. That instead of coming together, as we had an example of last year when we had the COVID research being done, all of a sudden, everybody was reading from the same page. And things got done very, very quickly.
What I hope comes from collaborations like this is a shared sense of purpose. And as I say, there are things we all want and that I think are givens in terms of cures, in terms of pharmaceutical help. But when I look at what research is undertaken, that is the vast majority of research. And there is much less research into how to live well with dementia, how to cope with all the differing symptoms. Sometimes those little things are really confounding for us folk. I think fundamentally what I'm hoping is that this is something which kind of bridges the gap, really. It bridges the gap between the academic world of research and the nitty-gritty lives that we live.
His focus was on let people know. That was always his, he would say to friends that we met quite openly, "Oh, I have dementia. It doesn't mean I have to be locked away and forgotten about. Please still include me in various things that are going on." So I think there's got to be an inclusiveness for the people who are going through the dementia journey.
I firmly believe that they need to engage with us. They need to sit in the same room as us. They need to listen to what we have to say. There are many, many, many reasons for all neurological illnesses, and there's no one cure. And I really think we have to waken them up to the academic research is important, I agree, but it's not the only type of research that you need. You need to know exactly how people have felt, what they've seen, what they've experienced.
Hearing is different than listening. Mm-hmm. They hear us, the professionals, but they don't listen to us. Mm-hmm. And on the last interview that I had at the memory clinic, I knew more about this condition than the person that was interviewing me. Yeah, we'd like to be in the driving seat, there's no doubt about it, but we still need a sat nav. We are prepared to do the talking, we're prepared to do the donkey work, but we need a platform where we can put our point across and have a voice. So if somebody is prepared to provide us that, I'm prepared to do whatever, because you see, at the end of the day, it's the same thing. We've got a goal, and that goal is that we want to do something about this horrible illness, this horrible condition. And the only way to do something about it is by talking to people with it.
To me, a partner in research is that we're entering the platform in equals. It's not about us against them. It's about us sharing our life experience. I think that's the whole idea of partner research. We have got to learn from each other. It's not us against them. We've got to work together as a team. I think that's the whole idea of this project. There are so many experiences that we can contribute towards the research. That's why I like to see that you would accept or listen to us. That's one of the things that the guys were talking about. I'm pretty sure you will listen to us. I mean, you listen to us anyway, Rosie, don't you?
We have to have balanced discussions, because a lot of the people with the lived experience, whether they're carers or people living with a diagnosis of something, they have a need to express their emotions and their feelings, etc. And once you get that out of the way, so to speak, and everybody understands the background of where people are coming from, that's when the researchers can move forward, and that's where learning together comes from. But researchers are human beings too, so they need to give us a wee bit about their human side as well, so that we're working together as a team, as human beings. I would like to see changes made so that when we're researching, we know who the outcome is for. It has to make a difference to the person and the research that you're doing. If it doesn't make a difference, then I don't want to participate. I think we need to make it more simple, even for the academics, so that they could get on with the appropriate research to give an outcome to families and professionals doing a job. So there's lots of good things going to come out of this, and a lot that we don't know yet, you know. So we'll all be learning from one another, and that's why I think with the expertise round the table and sitting and all the wee events that you're going to have in that, bringing it together, this book should be an academic bestseller. And I only hope it's done in my lifetime of dementia.
Know the person that's actually talking to you. Get to know the person. Do the homework on it. And I think the important things I've written out here is, number one is trust, respect, understand, and communicate in a dementia-friendly language, if you like. If you met one person with dementia, you met one person with dementia. Now, they always say that, but nobody practices it. You know, there are times when we are living with the condition. There are times when we are struggling with the condition. There are times when we're trying to come to terms with the condition. And there are times when we are suffering with the condition. And all that can happen to a person with dementia within short spell of time.
The legacy of partner research would open up doors into things like heart diseases, cancer and all that. They could see, oh, hang on a minute, the dementia group has done something really useful in terms of partner research. We could do something like that, you know.
The amount of experience that was on this Zoom, right, is amazing in the research field, not just lived experience, but actually doing and participating, collaborating, and like with the pioneers, actually instigating research. So that's great. But your academic and educational skills at the partnering with us makes it more powerful. So together we are stronger, you know, and if we can get that out to other researchers about how it makes your research more powerful, and it's worth the effort at the beginning to get to see the humanness of it, and then build from there a strong foundation, and then build from there. We are making a difference. Together, we are going to make a difference, you know.
Thank you very much. I think there's some really powerful messages coming through. Thank you. Coming through from that. And if all new researchers could watch that video, you get a lot of good ideas from it, a lot of insight into what it's like to be a participant, but also the importance of collaboration, that we're all in it together. I think that's exactly right. So, moving on, I'm now going to introduce Gillian Foster, who is from Fife, and Dina D'Souza. And they're going to talk about what it's like to participate in Huntington's disease research. So, I'll pass over to you, Gillian. Yes, they're going to go over there.
Thank you. That was very touching, and I think it reminded me a lot of HD families, and we do a small thing called Round the Kitchen Table where we get feedback for families. Mark made quite a good few points, but trying to follow that will be difficult. My name is Gillian Foster. I am a senior HD nurse in Fife, and I was asked to speak today about the research we're doing and how we got there. So in Fife, we've got 2 specialist HD nurses, my colleague Nicola and myself. We have 1 part-time admin, 2 sessions consultant psychiatrist, 3 sessions clinical psychology. We also have access to financial wellbeing officer. This was a financial wellbeing officer which was identified from families that they found when the nurses were going out, they were quite embarrassed because they maybe didn't have enough money and they didn't want to tell us that they were struggling or coping with. So part of what Scottish Huntington's did was identify funding pots. So we've got these officers that go out now and can look at benefits and increasing the family income. And also along with a youth service. So the youth service looks at young people aged 8 to 24 that live with people with HD. So often these children might not be, but might be carers and not receive the right education and same opportunities as other children. We're currently funded by NHS Fife and the Social Care Partnership. So that's just, do you know, a wee bit of what we are. So the research in Fife and what we offer, the first one is Enrol. Enrol HD, so for people who don't know what that is, we've been involved with Enrol for the last 16 years. So you would come out, if you have HD, you're at risk of HD, or at risk of HD, then you could come along and have an annual assessment. And at that annual assessment, these follow the following. So each participant goes through a motor assessment. So they'll be asked to do things like tandem walking, side fist flat, and we have to do a motor assessment rating scale for that. So that's done annually. So people have a motor score. We also have a problem behaviour assessment, a cognitive assessment, suicide rating, medication and comorbidities. And what we found when we first started doing this, we've been doing it 16 years now, and we had a nurse doing some of these assessments, a psychiatrist doing some of these assessments, and a psychologist doing some. We got a feedback for the patient that they actually didn't like going seeing 3 different people. So what we've done is we've skilled one person to do all assessments. So they go in for their appointment, they're there approximately an hour and a half to 2 hours, and they're seen by the same person every year. We also found that, like I think it was Mark saying on your video, the feedback, about getting feedback when you're coming to these things. We found that people were saying, well, we're coming every year and we don't know anything. So I know in Fife, I can't speak for other places, but we do what's called a comparison table. So if you could move on to my next slide. So we could actually go back data 10 years. Not everybody chooses to have this. Some people do not want to see how their condition may deteriorate. So if that's an option, and also what we do is, if they request the comparison table, we'll go out and explain it to them. Because sometimes 1 or 2 points down might be significant to the person, but be insignificant, as in they might have had a bereavement or circumstances have changed. So it's really important that we give them the right feedback to not be too concerned about some of the scores. So we do provide that comparison table. Next slide. We were lucky enough a month before COVID hit to secure Clarity, which I thought was a great achievement for Fife. We don't have a genetic centre. We work with the Western General and also Dundee 9 Wells, depending on where you are in Fife. But we did get Clarity. We've got a good research and development team in Fife and good clinical facilities. And what Clarity is taking the spinal fluid out of the spine. And then hopefully the scientists and researchers around the world can find a cure for Huntington's disease. So in Fife, if I could have just my next slide, that's just telling you a wee bit about it. Currently on their website, they're saying 2 sites are involved in the UK. I know Glasgow's one and Fife's one. Glasgow's now not doing it at this point in time. So in the UK, Fife is the only one doing Clarity. So I think that's great. But, it's got a but, and there's a wee caveat. Because the labs are overwhelmed with COVID, we can't get the... so Emma's currently helping me work towards getting Clarity started again in Fife. My next slide, please. In Fife, we're aiming to have 30 people on Clarity. We had 4 seen in the February when we started, but 2 failed due to blood screen. It was something to do with blood clotting. I'm not a scientist. It's currently, the study's on hold because of the labs, and we aim to start as soon as possible with this study. If I could just mention, for people who probably won't know, but in March this year there was a big, huge Rush study that was stopped, that there was a great deal of hope pinned on to finding a cure for clients with HD. It was really, really devastating for clients and around the world, actually. And I think Dana's going to touch on that one. But it learnt me about client expectation and how careful we need to be. Following the stop of the Roche trial, I had a girl aged 25. So for anybody that doesn't know, Huntington's normally hits in the age range of 30 to 50. And what happens is the cells in the brain start to die and there is no cure. So following the stop of the Roche trial, a girl phoned me at the age of 25 who had spent the last 24 hours Googling how to end her life the quickest, because she felt the Roche trial was going to be able to stop the symptoms of HD beginning. So that started up whole new conversations about the expectations of these clinical trials. But just some stats. Currently on our system that we use in the Scottish Huntington's Association, we have 2,333 clients in Scotland. 581 of these have a positive test result for symptoms, but we have quite a large group of at-risk people. That's people who don't want tested but have a parent with HD. This also includes, that doesn't include positive tests with no symptoms. At risk, the juvenile form of disease, and carers. So there's quite a cohort there. Next slide, please. I was involved in a webinar last week, and Hank Shuring, who's the Chief Regulatory and Commercialisation Officer, asked him if I could actually quote, because the study that's just closed in October, he had said the HD population were absolutely fantastic. They were able to recruit 480 something clients from October 2020 to October 21, which seemingly is a huge big tick in the world of research. So there are a huge population out there willing to cut their left arm off, but that's my kind of factual stuff. I think you'll get a lot from Dina. I'd like to welcome Dina D'Souza. She's living with the disease and she's going to tell you a bit about her journey in research. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. And first I wanted to make a comment about the short videos that were shown. Absolutely fantastic. Same sort of quotes we hear in Huntington's disease. So you may feel that your own specific disease is special, unique, but across the board, we all have similarities and we all go through the same thing. One of the quotes that kept coming up was, when you meet somebody with dementia, you meet somebody with dementia. That is a quote I use all the time in Huntington's disease also. Anyways, that was just a little sidebar that I had to add in. So I'm going to start my talk a little different today, and this is usually at the end of my talk, but I decided to show this picture. No explanations just now, and I'll come back to it a little later. So my name is Dina D'Souza, and thank you, Gillian, on her presentation on HD in Fife. I'm not from Fife, and I'll be giving you my perspective on research in HD. Now, my accent may be confusing to all of you. So I'm Portuguese by birth. I grew up in Toronto, Canada, but I have been in lovely Scotland for the last 23 years. And my introduction into the HD roller coaster started in 2007 when my father, at the age of 73, was diagnosed with Huntington's. And sadly, as with so many other families, I thought at the time this was such a unique story, but it's not, because he was misdiagnosed for so many years, probably about 15 years. But upon his diagnosis, it explained everything that was going on with him. And I decided at the time that I was going to go for predictive testing. I've not won any lotteries in my life, but with 50-50 odds, I've inherited the mutated gene. Now, going for testing is a very personal choice, and there's no right or wrong answer to this. When I started this journey, I thought it was black and white. If you have a test, why not? You should go for it. But over the years, now I have learned that there's a lot of gray areas in here. For me, not knowing would actually have weighed more on my mind than knowing that I'll be affected by HD. And some people say it is a death sentence, but you don't have to let it be. And I'm not saying that the last 14 years have been easy, far from it. And this is a picture of my dad. He passed away 8 years ago, and this was in the last year of his life. In HD, very common towards the end, emotion is something that's lacking in patients, but somehow the carers at his home were able to capture his beautiful smile that day. Now, my way of coping is to learn as much as possible. And I say this so many times. For me, knowledge is power. It's the way I feel in control. I've attended many EHDN meetings, but at the beginning I chose to listen, sit, and stay in the background, but that was what was right for me at the time. But in 2015, at the very last minute, I decided to attend the first European Huntington's meeting. I thought, okay, there's a lot more that I could do. And I was elected to the board a year later. And these years have taken me on an incredible journey. I'm also a board member of the Scottish Huntington's Association. Now, 10 years ago, I would never have gotten up here in front of people and given a talk. But life throws you curveballs, and you have several options. I've chosen to be proactive in patient advocacy. I've participated in many studies: PREDICT, Enroll, Track On, CSF, which was the first CSF trial before Clarity. I've done one visit with Clarity, and my last trial was Brain Train. As far as I'm concerned, my brain is there for hire, for free. For any disease, clinical trials and studies play a critical role in the development of new and better therapies. Yet, under-enrollment in trials is one of the greatest challenges for research. But the HD community has been very fortunate, and it actually hasn't faced under-enrollment. So Gillian touched on the Prelenia trial, which closed within a year with 500 participants. But also, 2 years ago, the Roche trial recruited over 800 participants, also in record fast time. And I truly believe that Enroll, which is an observational study, had a huge factor in that. For me, Enroll is my HD army. Now, of all the studies that I've mentioned, they're all observational studies. I do not qualify for any interventional studies because I don't meet any of the inclusion criteria. But if I did, I know I'd be their feet first for one of them. Now I'm back to this picture. One of my significant motivators is that I have two boys, men, age 24 and 29, and they are both at risk. So this is Christopher, Alexander, my husband Paul, and my two Muppets, Elmo and Murphy. And they have been there to support me in anything that I'm challenged with. As a parent, your natural instinct is to protect your children, but I can't protect them from the inheritance of the gene. They have both decided not to be tested, but that's their choice. But I believe I can make a difference in what's available to the two of them and others in the future. As a rare disease, we are very fortunate to have a well-established and connected community, but there is so much that needs to be done. I actually don't like using the phrase "to find a cure." It's too strong a statement. What I believe in is altering the onset of the disease and alleviating the symptoms. The discovery of the gene in 1993 was a major event. And in December 2017, the gene silencing broke the news, and it was hailed as one of the biggest breakthroughs in neurodegenerative diseases for the past 50 years. In 2021, 20 years later, despite the setbacks that we had with two major trials, Gillian touched on one, but there were actually 2 black days for the HD community, and they were within 2 weeks of each other. But in the course of HD history, we are still on the precipice of many new exciting interventional trials. I've just listed a few here. Patients and families may feel that things have not moved fast enough, and I hear this all the time, but in science time, a lot has happened. And we still need to be a little bit patient, a little longer. But I can honestly say that I feel cautiously optimistic about my future, because I'm the kind of person who always sees a glass half empty. But in order for this to be achieved, carers, families, professionals, all have to be involved. And I go back to Dr. Russ's talk earlier today. The patients are the experts, and the families are the experts. And they have so much that they can share with the professional community. So I always say, now is not the time to say somebody else would do it. That somebody is you. We don't have to be all involved in everything, but there is a part for everyone. Each one of us is a small piece in this great HD puzzle that needs to be put together. This disease has been stigmatized long enough. We all know that the secrecy, I believe that involvement, whatever part, will help HD families have the courage and strength to come forward and talk and take off their masks. Now, I'm 58 and still relatively healthy. I don't plan too far in the future, as I don't know what HD will throw at me. But for now, you may see me struggle, but you'll never see me quit. And I'm going to end with a small blurb of a gift from my boys a few Christmases ago. So just bear with me. And this was a lovely book they gave to me, and this was what my 2 Muppets did to it one day when I left it on the table. Anyways, the inscription: Mum, your travels on behalf of Huntington's disease are truly admirable. You're a source of inspiration to us both, as it takes an incredible strong heart to endure such a burden as you have. I hope you find inspiration in this blank canvas to document each and every detail of your travels, the cities you visit, the people you meet, the experiences you encounter, food you eat, emotions you feel. One day, we hope to have the opportunity to read and catch up on the finer details we've missed as a result of not being able to catch up around the kitchen table regularly. It would mean the world to us. Love, your boys. Thank you.
Thank you, Dina. That's very moving, actually. And to Gillian as well. Thank you both so much for giving us a bit of insight into Huntington's. and what it's like to live with Huntington's and what it's like to try and encourage research in Huntington's. So next I would like to introduce the next, they're called the Smarties, and it's Lindsay Kinnaird and Rosie Vincent. And this is about co-producing research. Now I think one is online, am I right in saying that? And there's a video, is that correct? Yeah, okay. So I will sit down and let it speak for itself.
Okay, so the group that I'm going to be talking about is Buds. It's not actually the Smarties. That's going to be Rose that's going to be talking about that. Can I just check everybody can hear okay and see okay? Yeah. I just wanted to say thank you to Dina. I'm sitting here crying, but that was amazing. Thank you so much. I loved the little quotes that you shared from your sons. So, hello everyone in the conference room and at home today. It's good to speak to you this afternoon. I'm going to be talking to you about co-producing research with a group of people with personal experience of dementia, working alongside the team of researchers. The example is from a current study on receiving a diagnosis of dementia during the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm part of the research team and work closely with the co-production group. Much of what I will be presenting and all of the quotes that you're going to see are directly from the group of people with personal experience of dementia. And so we've been working together for the last 6 months, and we will continue to work together until the project ends in March 2022. So just to give you a little bit of an introduction to the study itself, it's about the experience of dementia, assessment and diagnosis during the COVID-19 pandemic. Lockdown resulted in the rapid transformation of memory clinic services. And we're aiming to understand this experience from the perspective of the person being diagnosed, care partner, and also the clinician. So, BUDS, this is Better Understanding Dementia Diagnosis, and this is the name chosen by the co-production group. So this is a group of 5 people with personal experience of dementia. The group is made up of 1 person who has a diagnosis of dementia and 4 care partners. And BUDS are involved in each stage of the project, and their views, experiences and suggestions are a key part of the work. So as a group, we meet once a month for 2 hours using the Zoom online platform. And the group is also open to receiving emails and contact in between the meetings as well. So just to talk about the motivation of the group members, because this is a significant commitment over an 8-month period. So it is important to understand why people are interested in being involved in this project. So for our group, it's included to learn as much as possible about dementia and the desire to support people coming after you and being able to influence future support. So this is really about gaining a greater understanding to inform your own experience and wishing to benefit those who will be living with dementia in the future. So the benefits of being involved from the perspective of the BUD group members. So the first experience provided here is actually from a previous study that one of the participants was involved in, the European Prevention of Alzheimer's Dementia, which I heard mentioned earlier on today. So this gave the woman the opportunity to talk to a consultant about her concerns in relation to her husband, and it informed their experience of an early diagnosis and drug treatments that have been really beneficial in their experience. So then being asked to join our group gave the woman the opportunity to learn from other people's experience and perhaps gain some useful understanding for their future. For a couple in the group, doing something that feels similar to work has been important, as they would have continued to work if it was not for dementia. And linked to this is knowing that their contribution is valuable. And there is a shared understanding within the group and a real compassion for what everybody's experiencing. And personally, it's given me a lot of confidence going into interviews. And this is down to the group's contribution to the interview schedule, but also the way that they've kind of informed me about the appropriate approach. It's really kind of made me feel that have an underlying confidence that you know I've got the right approach when I'm going in to meet people online. So just to talk about what makes it work. And this was something that we gave a bit of thought to at the beginning of the study. And we took a bit of time to plan that from the outset. So our first meeting included the full research team and the co-production group, the BUDS group, and that was a total of 11 people. So we used breakout rooms on Zoom to split into smaller groups. And we used this opportunity to have an informal conversation, and each person shared something about themselves, and that was something like maybe a hobby or, you know, your favourite place to visit. And this is something that the BUDS group have said kind of retrospectively that actually this was one of the key factors in creating a group dynamic. So our subsequent meetings have had 2 from the research team. So this is a group size of 7 with 5 from the BUDS group. So before each meeting, we send packs, which includes the agenda and any documents we might be using, and also drinks and treats to enjoy during the meeting as well. So unfortunately, we're not able to provide payment for people's valuable time, but we do give everyone a choice of voucher each month as a reimbursement for their time and important contribution. So the emphasis during the meetings is making as much space as possible for the group's contribution. So the research benefits from the experience of people living with dementia. And the role of the research team really is about facilitating and supporting this contribution. In order to do this, we need to be realistic about how much we can cover during the 2-hour meeting. And we really want as much time as possible to be given over to discussing. And it's been a learning experience, to be honest. And I'd say that we kind of were a bit ambitious at the outset in terms of what we could cover. So we've kind of learned to scale back a bit so that we allow the quality of input from the group members. So in terms of the format, we always start off with an informal chat to catch up on how everyone is, what's been happening since the last time that we met. And this has kind of grown over the last few months as we've really got to know each other and got to know about each other's lives and the interesting things that are happening for everybody. And then we kind of give a short update on progress and any issues that have occurred in relation to the research project. We have a short comfort break mid-meeting, and we split whatever work we're doing into 2 sessions and kind of with that focus on as much discussion as possible. So we really find that the 2 hours goes by really quickly. And we do try to kind of keep 10 minutes at the end to kind of decompress and make sure that everybody is feeling okay before we sign off. We have our final meeting of the year next week, and we'll give half the meeting over to a kind of festive social, and we're just thinking about games and activities that we can do during that time. But to be honest, I think by the time we just chat to each other, the time quickly goes by now that we're all kind of getting to know each other. So respect and giving time for everybody's input is something that has been really important. Members of the group don't always agree, but that is something that they feel comfortable with, and they each make space to listen to each other and to discuss things. And This has required a particular consideration given that we're meeting online, but it does seem to be working well for everybody. So just to talk a wee bit about that sort of online approach and how we've found it and what the group feel about it. One thing that it has given us is it's given us the opportunity to bring people together from across Scotland, and a group of people that wouldn't actually have been able to meet in a room because of the geography. So, you know, from Inverness, from Perth, from Edinburgh, we're all able to come together on a Wednesday afternoon. So in terms of etiquette, the group members have described a politeness in allowing others to speak and nobody dominating the conversation. And the group have also highlighted some real benefits to the online approach, and that's about being in the comfort of your own space and feeling at the kind of safety of your own home. And they've also highlighted the particular concentration required to meet online, and that everybody's kind of focused in one direction and that there aren't conversations happening separately, which kind of perhaps would happen if we were all kind of sitting in the same room. So just finally, just to kind of talk about the importance of this approach to research. And I really like this first contribution. If after the first couple of meetings I felt we were just there to tick a box, you would have very quickly seen the back of me. And I really like the directness of that. It's straightforward and it really makes me feel that, you know, and have confidence that things are working well and the group members are feeling that, you know, this is worth their precious time. The group have highlighted the value of their experience and importance of helping those who will follow them. And this is really a key reason why we're carrying out the project in this way. And I think these final two contributions here really sum up the importance of a collaborative approach. The work we're doing has to make sense and it has to be of benefit to people living with dementia. And I really feel the frequency of our meetings and that we're checking in regularly and that there's an accountability in terms of the work we're doing as we're going along is really important. Okay, so that's really what I wanted to cover. And as I say, the majority, all the quotes and the majority of what I've been saying is the experience and the contribution of our BUDS group. And just finally, if there's any questions.
Great. There's no questions from the floor here. I haven't seen anything coming up on the chat, so thank you very, very much for that. Really fascinating, interesting an account of how you're doing things, which is, again, a lot to learn. So if we could now move over to Rosie. Is it Rosie? Or
yeah,
Rose?
Rosie or Rose. Yeah, Rosie or Rose.
Okay. And you're going to talk about Smarties, is that correct?
I am.
Yeah, okay, I'll pass on to you then. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Lindsay. Having attended the BUDS group myself a few times, I can say what a great group it is and what a privilege it is to work with them. But I'm going to be talking about my PhD research today. So I'm based at the Edinburgh Centre for Research on the Experience of Dementia and the Alzheimer's Scotland Dementia Research Centre. I'm in the second year of my PhD and I've been lucky enough to work with an incredible group of people who collectively are known as the Smarties. And the Smarties are spread across the UK. So we've pre-recorded a video to share with you today, hopefully, if all the tech works. Just to give you a kind of a bit of an explanation about the work that we've been doing together.
Hi, my name is Julie and welcome to the Smarties. Over the last few months we've been meeting to co-produce a piece of research into volunteering in young onset dementia. We came about our team name due to our joint love of this particular foodstuff, and have developed a great working relationship together. both those who are living with dementia and those who are not. The work has been based on our lived experience and from evidence based on the dementia diaries.
As Julie said, we all have dementia, and we attend this group partly because we need to keep our brains active, but also we feel that as people with dementia, we've got lived experience so that we have a unique intake into how it is to live with dementia. So looking at these dementia diaries written by people with dementia, we can associate with them easily and understand where they're coming from, probably better than academics in a way. I should have said that the research we do mostly is for the future, not for ourselves.
Yeah, I think what I also like about this group is the fact that we're all at different ages, shall we say. So it's like some people have been diagnosed for longer than others, and I've learned quite a bit just by listening to other people talking as well, and sharing their company, and it's been quite insightful and very enjoyable company, I must admit.
Involvement of people who are living with dementia, and the fact that we can have a positive input into dementia research, and hopefully encouragement for other people with dementia to also become involved in research.
Yep. So it basically boils down to nothing about us without us.
So, what do we do? When we were invited to be part of this research project, Rose obviously had a broad idea of the field and the subject to be considered, and that was volunteering and dementia. And the source of the materials was the dementia diaries. However, through consultation and collaboration, and long before the project was finally set and programme and plan was made, participants were included in fine-tuning the subject and how we were going to do it. And so the outcome of this was the focus was going to be people living with dementia and the volunteering role. Once this was all agreed, Rose and Rosie used their own criteria selection process to focus their search for the diary excerpts. They then send us excerpts from the dementia diaries about a week or so before each session. And during the session, we listen to the diary. Well, so first of all, we vote on the selection, and we narrow that down to a selection of 3 or 4 that we then really focus on quite clearly. The voting is personal and it's subjective, but the decision is group and collective. So it covers everything. We then read the diary excerpts, and we also listen when technology allows to the actual authors sharing their own diary. And then we ask ourselves 2 questions to respond to. And it's, how would I feel if I was this person, if I was them? And what stands out in particular, or what is of particular interest or note? We share our responses, and these are collated by Rosie and Rose. What we bring is our life experiences to this research. This is wide and varied and covers really pretty much every aspect of social life and living in general. And it also includes some experiences of volunteering as someone living with dementia. We also bring enthusiasm and optimism and realism and our determination to try to make a difference for ourselves maybe, and for others hopefully. But what makes us keep coming back is a sense of purpose, the fact this whole programme is so well organised and resourced by Rose and Rosie, but also a huge sense of enjoyment and real camaraderie that is shared across the whole group.
Now, where do we meet for this research? We meet on a platform called Zoom. Zoom appeared during COVID and has allowed everybody really, but particularly people with dementia, the ability to stay in contact with each other, meet new friends, and to be honest, it's kept a lot of us pretty much sane, I would say, to be honest. I think without the Zoom over the lockdown period, a lot of us would be in a far worse position than what we are now. Like. So it's been an excellent platform. On Zoom, there's an etiquette that we follow. The Zoom meetings are facilitated by a Rose and a Rosie, and we sit with our microphones off, and then when it's our turn to speak, or if we wish to speak, we use things which we called I want to speak cards. These usually yellow with black writing, and that allows us to speak without interrupting each other, and allows us not to talk over each other, which is brilliant. Right? And if you're lucky like me, you get a card that's personalised, which tells everybody how awesome I am. It's a bit rude on the back, but that'll come on another day, right? But yes.
Can I just add that doing it in this way and meeting in this way, it keeps it in a comfort zone for us all. I have my Zoom dog who joins in, and I get a little bit of security from having him in the same room, and a great deal of joy from seeing everybody else's cats and dogs as they appear and disappear and intermingle with the conversations.
Zoom allows people like myself who live in rural areas without any other real peer support groups to join in. So I think it should continue after kind of COVID finishes.
My friends have already touched on some of this, but these are my thoughts. Over the last 10 years since being diagnosed with Alzheimer's, I've been involved in lots of research projects at various levels, including being a co-applicant for research projects and a co-leader of research projects. This is one of the best. And it's one of the best for some simple, straightforward reasons. First of all, it's a project that's based on relationships within the group. It's a project that has respect for each other and trust. There's a great deal of humour shared within the group, which enables us then to focus on the more serious aspects as well. Communication is excellent from Rose and Rosie, and also within the group, during the sessions and beyond the sessions. There's excellent organisation and there's excellent support. We each relate to the subject. We each relate to the people who have contributed through the dementia diaries. I think all this is very important. The other thing that helps me connect to the project is the way it's structured. Each session has a definite beginning, a middle and an end. The beginning being the more informal chat, humour, catch up with the group. And those times are crucially important to then enable us to move from that into the more formal bulk of the meeting. And then there's always an ending, looking forward to the next time we come together.
Because very often people living with dementia are not respected. And people don't think that we do have anything to offer. And Rose and Rosie are forever reminding us we do have a lot to offer.
I think also this project is a really good example of two words that are often used and bandied around. One a positive and one a negative. And this project is a good example of enforcing the positive and totally rejecting the negative. And the positive being co-creation or co-production. Because this is, so much co-creation and so much co-production has taken place over the last few months with this project. It's quite unique, I think. And secondly, the word tokenism, which so often I'm afraid one still sees in research projects where people like the 5 or 6 of us are brought along to be part of a group, and we might get in a 2-hour meeting, we might get 3 minutes to speak. And that's just tokenism. And that, there's not even a whiff of it in this project.
I think that it's very important that we've discussed the needs of us as individuals. And some of us have some sensory issues. And one of the good things that's important to me is that we all do put ourselves on mute when we're not speaking. Because if we weren't on mute, and there was background noises like the telephone ringing, a dog barking, anything, my attention would be drawn to that noise and taken away from what we're talking about. So, you know, we've covered everything about what makes it easier for some of us. And other people can't look at the screen for too long. Some people can't read stuff if you put it in the chat box. So we've covered all of these things to find out, you know, what we all need to do to make it easier and better for each other. We support one another in many ways. I think we support one another by respecting one another. As I said, we listen to one another. And last week when I got upset on here unexpectedly, I tell you what, I felt safe. I really feel that I'm in a safe place when I'm with you guys. And I wouldn't have been able to have shared what I shared if I hadn't felt that. So it's important that you feel that you're in a safe place. Because when we're talking about how dementia affects us and how things crop up in our lives, we don't know what sort of an emotional reaction we're going to have. And it's important that I felt that I was in a safe place and I was able to share that. And that is rare. So, you know, if you're doing any research on dementia, you have to have the lived experience and the people living with dementia. And remember that we're all at different stages, because I still think some researchers, you mentioned dementia, and they automatically jump to end stage dementia. And they forget that there's a beginning and there's a middle, and that we can still speak, we still have opinions, and we've got a lot to give. And thank you for allowing us the time to interact with yourselves.
I just wanted to say a huge thank you to all of the Smarties for everything, for all the work you've done on the project. Without you all, it wouldn't be possible. And for putting all the effort into making that video so we could share our research. And thank you to all the other presenters today. It's been a real privilege to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Rose. Really, again, another really great example of what can be done when you're looking at co-production and bringing people together so that they have a voice. Really, really interesting and great work. Did anybody have any questions about that? No? As I said right at the beginning, if questions have come up during the day, we will do a Q&A for after the conference, and we'll send it out to everybody. So thank you so much. So we now have a short break, and I want to keep the break small, so say 10 minutes. We're nearly at the end of the day, despite the fact it's only 2:30, but what we'll do is we'll come back in and we have Dr. Susan Schenken, who's going to be telling us all about Enrich. And following on from that, some of the network teams have put together some vlogs, which are just short and sweet, but tell you about what's going on. And then I will announce who has won the poster prize.